Hey, hey. Um, I'm gonna let this go for a second, see if anybody shows up, and while I do, I'll just sip on my instant coffee. Well, um, I'm not that popular, and I'm not gonna wait around. Basically, this is the third attempt at me making a video today, so my phone's full of videos for Black Star Homestead, which I have to edit and put up today. But I just wanted to do a quick little video about what I've been reading and stuff. So, um, as you know, Zoe and I have been going through the first issue of Weird Tales pulp magazine from March 1923. And what I'm going to be talking about today isn't in that issue, actually. Me and Zoe will be putting up a video soon about the novelettes inside that issue. Um, and, um, but what I have been doing, I've just been reading a ton of short fiction because that seems to be kind of what I have time for right now. And I'm really enjoying it. Hey, how you doing, man? Sorry. Um, I miss you guys. We've talked about that. Um, but yeah, so I've been reading a lot of short stuff, and I found a podcast called the Weird Tales Podcast, which, funny enough, I've been subscribed to that for, I would say, like a year at least, and I've just never listened to it. I just haven't had the ability, not the ability, but I guess the desire to sit and listen to a podcast of a dude reading me stories. Yay, Jody. Um, but what I have been reading, okay, let me go back to that podcast. So that podcast is really great. And if you haven't checked it out yet and you just want like to hear a story on the way to work or something, something short, like 20 minutes, and you can speed it up and it's done in 10. It's a really good podcast. I've been listening to it mainly when I'm driving, but also when I'm just like doing stuff around here and when I'm going to bed. I've been listening to it a lot too. But there's three stories that I want to talk about today. And the first one is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, I think her name is. Now, The Yellow Wallpaper, I've never read, but I've heard about it forever. Probably since I was in college, because it's a story that has a lot of social significance. Um, there are a lot of people like use it as like a metaphor for, or not even a metaphor, but just like a cautionary tale about, hey Jody, about like the woman's place in the home, the woman's place in a marriage, mental health issues. It has a lot of um, beef behind it, and a lot of that has to do with the author of the piece herself, who went through kind of like a postpartum depression thing and was given the same kind of therapy that the character in this book gets. And it basically almost pushed her over the edge. So, she wrote it because of that. Now, if you don't know any of that, this story is terrifying, and it's one of my favorite types of stories. I love first person narratives where the author is, I don't want to say slowly going insane, but I don't know a better way of putting it. Where the author seems to have their stuff together, but soon becomes what might be an unreliable narrator, um, and is just like losing their shit. There are a couple instances in this story that are so terrifying. Like I've read so much stuff that it's hard for me to be scared by something anymore. It seems like I feel like I've read it all, I've seen it all, I've done it all. Something has to like really grab me in order to put fear in me. So if you don't know what the story's about, because I'm rambling about it now, it's basically about this chick who has some kind of hysteria that her husband, who is a physician, um, has rented this house somewhere and put her in the top floor that has windows so she could see out and everything. But it has this like hideous, disgusting, really busy yellow wallpaper that she basically puts her focus on. And the wallpaper, the designs in it, it makes her so angry, but it's so fascinating at the same time. Um, and as she's going, um, she starts to see women inside the wallpaper. Oh, that's Blue. Blue, you're not supposed to be out right now. It's daytime. It's a feigning death beetle. Um, but anyway, so the images of these creeping women really set me off. I was just like, oh my god. And I think a lot of it has to do with when I was a kid at my grandparents' house. Um, and a lot of you might be familiar with this. Like, houses built in the late 60s, early 70s, or even houses that were redecorated during that time. A lot of wallpaper in that time were just ridiculous. And we had this wallpaper in the downstairs bathroom that was like, it was just white wallpaper, but it had these things that were supposed to be like floral designs that were almost like damask, but it was like floral, and they were green velvet. So like they like were raised and were furry and everything. But I never saw the floral designs until I was like in my 20s. I always thought they were scary monster faces. So every time I would go into the bathroom to make my peace, I would be sitting there terrified that all of these like different monsters were staring at me and watching me poo, and it was really upsetting to me. Um, so I don't know if that made this story have like a scarier bit to me, but dude, like it was just terrifying, and it's one of those things where I feel bad almost that I'm like, yeah, cool, mental health, social awareness, bleh, this is terrifying. And I was just curious, so I started like digging around online and on YouTube, just kind of seeing what people were talking about. And nobody is talking about how goddamn terrifying the story is. They're just talking about like this like really helped push how to deal with mental health issues into a new place, and this is really just talking about the husband and wife dynamic. And I'm like, dude, that was terrifying. Why are we muddying this up? And I don't want to be that guy because I know this was an important story and actually helped a lot of people out and all this other junk. But, dude, like, I was seriously mortified when I read that. Oh, man, that was really good. So anyway, highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. It was written in like the 1860s, I want to say. So you could find this online. You could find PDFs of it, or you could just go to the Weird Tales podcast and listen to it. Um, then I listened to a story called Fishhead, which was published, I think, in the early 1900s, and it has a bit of early 1900s sensibilities when it comes to race in the South and everything like that. But it takes place in kind of like the swamp bayou areas. And there isn't much story here other than there's this very weird guy and people don't like him. And they're going to do something about it. So it's a tale as old as time. But what was great about this was how graphic it was. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, but it's one of those things like when you're reading something really old and you don't really expect a whole lot, and then someone's throat gets ripped out and they're gushing blood and their chest gets pulled apart. It's just like the violence and gore in this story, and it is a terrifying story. Like once that starts happening, um, it just like I was like, what the? And it's written by a guy named Irving S. Cobb. Um, and again, this is probably you can find it anywhere. Um, but the last story I want to talk about, and the reason why I want to talk about it, is it's called Willows by Algernon Blackwood, who is like a classic. He's one of those guys that basically inspired all of your H.P. Lovecrafts and Robert E. Howards and Clark Ashton Smiths, um, just like Edgar Allan Poe and Lord Dunsany. Um, and I read this story called The Willows, or just Willows, and it's about these two dudes that go on kind of like, I don't want to say a camping trip, it seems like more of like a survivalist trip. And at first, it's just more of like a travel log. Like you're hearing about how gorgeous this place is they've canoed to and all this. And it's really just like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. They're doing their thing. And then when things start getting weird, I feel like every movie where, like, from Deliverance to Ritual to everything, like, oh, my oar is missing, or why is there a crack in the canoe? What's happening here? It's like one of those things, like where each day that goes by, like things start getting more and more fucked up, and you're like, why are you still there? Why are you still there? Go home. Um, but Willis is the best. Oh no, where'd it go? Hang on. Nope. I lost the comment. Oh wait, here. I just pushed this button. Yeah. Can I do that? Let's see. Our insignificance many saves us is one of the craziest, deepest lines ever. Oh, so you've read this, so you know this one. Okay, so you'll understand what I'm gonna like lose my shit on here in a second. So I'm listening to this. Um, it's in 4 parts on this podcast, and I'm just listening to it or whatever. And I'm not looking at my phone where I listen to my podcast or whatever. And I guess I didn't download the 4th episode of this story. So this story ends when the Swede tells the dude that they need to do a sacrifice, and then he looks at him kind of crazy. So I thought that was the end of the story. And I was like, oh my god, that's such a good ending. Like, this whole thing goes on, and now this dude thinks that his buddy's gonna try to kill him. Oh, that is classic. And it just ends classic. That is great. And like the whole time I'm like thinking back to everything that happened in the story, and I'm like, yeah, this just like totally takes you right up to this point. Oh, this is just good. And then like I think 2 days goes by, and then I go and I look at the podcast stream or the feed, and I'm like, Willows part 4. I'm like, huh? And so I listen. I listen to it, and it starts with just the rest of that conversation, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This isn't the end of the story. It's gonna keep going. And so it kept going, and like there were two really tense bits in there that were good. And dude, there's so many flies out here, guys, and I'm getting really good at just flicking them and smashing them, and then having to go wash a fingernail. Oh, there that one goes. Yeah, but man, when I thought it just ended with the Swede saying he's gonna kill his best friend, I was like, damn, that's a good ending. That is dark as fuck, man. That is great. Um, but it's just one of those things where it's like fantasy booking wrestling, you know? Like, I fantasy booked the end of that story, and I didn't even bother to look if there was anything else. I'm like, that is a great ending, and I just walked away happy for 2 days until I realized that Mr. Blackwood had a little bit more to it than that. So do you read a lot of Blackwood, or is it just that story that you know? And if not, and you do read a lot of Blackwood, what is some other good stories of his that you recommend? Let's see here. I did read some other stuff too, um, about. I'm trying to think of what else. There was some William Hope Hodgson, um, and then I read a little bit more Anthony Rudd, who we will be talking about when we cover the next Weird Tales bit. And I'll just say it right now, just so if anyone doesn't want spoilers, if you go online and look up Ooze, Ooze, by Anthony M. Rudd with 1D, read that story because that's going to be like the main topic of conversation for Zoe and I's next Weird Tales conversation. And I'll spoil it for you. I really liked it. So there's that. I think there might be problems with the science, but we will find out. Um, then there was something else. Oh, and then here's another thing, and I might be really narrowing the audience here when I talk about this. And you know what? I don't mind, because Jody and Troy are here, and there's more people there, but no one else is saying hi to me right now. So now it's just like I'm hanging out with my buds. We're just gonna chat. Okay. I had I kind of got into it. Oh no, I gotta shut this. Hang on, guys. Mina, hush. Zoe, say hi to Joy and Trudy. Say hi to Troy and Jody. Oh man. I don't even know what I just said. I said Joy and Trudy, I think. Um, okay, Joy and Trudy. But anyway, so I got into a um, like an online debate that turned into an online debate with like 5 people. Hi, Mina. Hey, you knew that was Mina. Um, Good old Joy, knowing my dog. Um, but yeah, so I got into this debate, and now this is going to be about Batman. Um, so, for those of you who are fans of Batman or Tom King, this might hit a little close to home for you. So, basically, I was talking with some people on a Discord group that I belong to about Batman comics. And I was like, okay, so Tom King, I really feel like, if you guys don't know the story, I'm going to try to paraphrase it real quick. About 5 years ago, Tom King started writing Batman and decided he was going to do this big, giant 100-issue arc that told this story of Batman being broken down to the lowest common denominator and having to like come back up. Well, like I think we're at issue like 75 or 76 now. He got, so it's been forever that this has been going on. He got I want to say he got fired. He got taken off the book. And issue 85 is now going to be the last issue. He will, however, get to continue the rest of his story in a mini series called Batman and Catwoman, which still, the number of issues in there won't get to 100, but it will get to like 97 or 96 or something like that. So I'm sitting here going, I think Tom King is, like, the longer this goes on, is kind of ruining Batman. And I feel like he's using Batman as like a stepping stone to get into Hollywood, to write movie scripts and all this other stuff. And immediately I got blasted. And that's fine, you know. But what pissed me off is that there were a lot of condescending tones coming out, basically saying, like, oh, well, you know, Tom King is like the Batman you read when you're in college, and everything else is like Batman you read when you're in high school. And I'm like, that's condescending. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think Batman is Batman, you know? And when you are trying to tell me that Tom King writes stuff for, like, he's like the thinking man's Batman, that pisses me off. Because that's saying that people who aren't reading that aren't as smart as the people who are. And I'm like, when I want to read college-ish kind of stuff, I read literature. I don't read a fucking Batman comic. And they're like, you know, they're just trying to make Batman more realistic, you know, like more relatable. And it's not really sad and depressing and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, if you want to make this character more real and more relatable, how about not have him wear a Halloween costume when he goes out to fight crime? That would make him seem much more realistic, like right off the bat, immediately. Because, like, no one's talking about that. Like, this guy's, like, miserable. Like, I'm not going to go over everything that's happened in the last 75 issues to make Batman whiny, snivelly, sado. But it's like, if he's doing all this stuff, like, why take the time to, like, put on your cool bat outfit? I just don't get it. And so we were arguing for like a long time, and I'm just like, look, dude, Batman's better than me. Batman's better than you. He's better than all of us because he's a fucking superhero who doesn't have superpowers. He's just better than us. I do not want him to be like us. I don't want to be able to relate to Batman. He's the world's greatest detective. Um, he's just better. And when I read Batman, I want to be reading like something exciting, something that has me on the edge of my seat, where I'm following the life or I'm following the crime fighting of someone better. Yeah, like again, like he's a billionaire. Like, can everyone relate to that? Oh no? Okay, well then we'll just have his heart broken and have his ass get kicked and have everyone who's ever been his friend turn on him. That'll make him relatable. So, I don't know. So it just really irritates me, and I fear that a lot of the damage being done to Batman right now is going to be irrevocable. And then, if you noticed, um, Dan DiDio, the head of DC Comics, I guess, um, is all pissed off because more people are buying the reprinted facsimile issues than the new issues of things. And it's because the older issues of stuff are better issues of stuff. And the newer stuff, like Batman's DC's biggest title. And when you're doing an arc that lasts like 5 years, where he's just depressed and everything is coming down on him, like that is not a good entry point for anybody coming in. And however long, like 4 years that this has been going on, it's too long to be doing something like that. The issues can't hold your, like if you picked up an issue of Batman right now and read it, you would have no desire to pick up the next issue because you would have no idea what the hell's going on. So there's there's no long-term booking for new fans, you know. And I keep using wrestling terms. I don't know what the hell is wrong with me right now. But anyway, so that's going on. And then I guess this is more story stuff. I've been getting really pissed off at wrestling. Um, I'm mad at um, a lot of WWE booking. I am loving the Bray Wyatt stuff, but I feel like they're just going to run this into the ground. But my fingers are crossed. And like AEW, I've really had high hopes for, but their storytelling on these last like 3 or 4 pay-per-views have been either crap or non-existent. And like there are some great things there. Jericho, Cody, MJF, Adam Page, and I guess I'll stop there. But there's no storytelling, and it's just like when you make wrestling a work, all you have left is storytelling. So if you're not gonna have storytelling that's worth a damn, like I don't know what the hell to tell you. So anyway, those are my 2 cents. Um, I guess that's it. There's so many flies. Do you guys see the flies? Look, there's one on my glasses and one on my face. Look at it. It's crawling across my eye. What is happening here? Okay, I gotta go get rid of these flies. So, I miss y'all. If you, have my number and want to text me, just text me and we'll chat. Um, or just leave a comment down below and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye. If I can figure out how to stop this thing. Oh my god, I can't